In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. Obviously, I wouldn't ask you to tell me, but if I were to ask you to think how much money you have in your bank account right now, I'm sure that almost all of you will be able to think pretty close to what it actually is. It might be a negative number, as is my case. It might be a small number, it might be a large number, but either way, whatever it is, I'm pretty sure that most of you would be pretty close. You'll be in the ballpark. You might be off a digit or two. Maybe about 5 of you would be far off from what is really in your account. Unfortunately, if I were to ask you to do the same exercise for your soul, and for you to think about the wealth or lack thereof in your soul right now, we would observe the opposite phenomena. There would be about 5 of you, give or take, that would be close to correct. The rest of you would be way off, about as far off as if you were to guess each other's bank account, that far off. And at the same time, you're probably all sitting there thinking, I'm one of these 5 that know my soul. Well, I'll tell you now, you're not. In fact, people go to confession after about 2 years, and they say, Father, it's been 2 years because I couldn't think of anything I've done wrong in this time. You're way off. The just man falls 7 times a day. And this is a problem. This is a real problem. Because if you don't know your own soul, there are 2 people who do. The first would be God. And God knows your soul because probably you're offending him with it. And the other being who knows your soul would be the devil. Because the devil put your soul in that state. And because the devil uses this information to tweak how he's going to tempt you and to know how to get you easily, so that if he wants to, most of the time he doesn't need to, but if he wanted to, he could make you fall into a serious sin just by dropping a hair or something like that. Thank God he usually leaves us alone. But he knows our weaknesses far more than we do. Far more. And it's very easy for him to make you fall into sins that you never thought you would ever commit if he wanted to. Because he knows your soul better than you do. Another problem that aggravates the fact is that most of the time, most people worry about other people's souls more than their own. You know, it's kind of like a game of rugby. Some of you have seen rugby, some of you haven't. Actually, most games would be a good example, but rugby's a good one. You can't play rugby and be worrying about anybody else on the field, except the person coming at you. Because if you're not concentrating on how you're playing the game, you're going to get hurt, and you're going to be carried off that field in a stretcher. It's only by concentrating on how you play the game and not how the other people are playing that you actually get to play the game and you actually get somewhere in the game. And it's the same thing in our spiritual lives. If we're off looking at other people's spiritual lives, we're detracting from our own and we're not advancing in the spiritual life because we're distracted. Some computers are able to defrag and organize themselves. But usually, if you go buy a computer and you bring it home, to plug it in, it's going to be really fast. And you're kind of happy with it and you use it. After about a year, it gets really slow. And it's so slow and you're waiting for it to work and You can't believe how long it takes to boot up. You turn on the computer and you go make a cup of coffee and you come back and it's just starting up. Then you can get these programs that will tell you that they can speed up your computer. So you download one of these programs and you install it and you run it, and it tells you that it's going to do a check of your system. So you let it run. And then once it's done what it does, you probably have to be sitting down, because it'll tell you that you have thousands of problems with your computer. And then you click fix it, and it does its thing. And when it's finished, your computer is about as fast as it was when you bought it. It's back to normal again. We need to defragment our souls from time to time, so that we're not slowed down by all these sins that we don't even know we have, or these tendencies, or these faults, and so on, that are slowing down our soul. Right now, unless you are one of those 5 that truly know your soul, I think 5 is a big number for that, maybe 2, or I don't know. With a little probing and a true examination, I'm sure you would find fault after fault after fault that you never knew you had. And if you were to ask yourself, what virtues are you practicing right now? You probably wouldn't find any. Except charity, because somehow everybody thinks they practice charity. What virtue do you practice? Charity. Well, how do you practice it? Putting up with people? No. Most of us are not practicing any virtue, which is sad. So there are different ways to run this test on your soul. I'm going to go over a couple. 3 of them. The first one, and the best one, would be to take a retreat. I'm not thinking one of those feel-good, share what you feel, activity-packed retreats that they offer, run by Sister so-and-so and whatever. I'm not talking one of those. Those are useless. That's for if you want to have a feel-good weekend. What I'm talking about is a real retreat. I'm talking about an Ignatius retreat, or something similar to that, where you have a priest who will have you quarantined for 5 days, silent, no communication with the outside world, no communication with anyone actually. You're silent, zip, no phone, no television, no nothing. And he will go through the exercises of St. Ignatius, or he will go through maybe some retreat that he himself had worked up, but it would be along those same lines. And it'll make you realize what you are in the sight of God. Be an eye-opener. You know, people, before they make one of these retreats, will tell you flat out, there's no way I could ever make a general confession, because you don't want to know all the things that I've done in my past life, and so I can't make a general confession of all the sins in my past life. And then they go on one of these retreats, and at the beginning of the retreat, the director will tell you, nobody is going to force you to go to confession. We recommend it, but you don't have to. Just go do the prayers and so on. Then about day 4 of the retreat, you're saying to yourself, gee, I've got to make this general confession. I have to do it right now. I've got all these sins, and I've got to get them all off my chest. And you make a general confession, and you start over. And it's amazing what it does to your soul. You leave there, and you're a different person. Your family life is improved. Your soul is improved. There's more fervor when you go to Mass. You pick up the Bible and you read it, and it makes sense. It makes you come alive. It's like doing that defrag thing to your computer. All of a sudden, it's like it was the day you bought it. I hope to get a retreat or a few available in the near future. I've got to organize it with the retreat center and so on. I've been thinking about it. But if you are able to make a retreat and find one online and go to it, that's the best thing you can do for your soul. If you've never made a retreat, you have to make one. If you've made a retreat 5 years ago, it's about time to make another one. It's good to make a retreat every year, but every year is a lot for most people. Can't get off work and so on. But it's something to do. It should be a top priority of yours. Best thing you can do for your soul. The second best way would be to get a spiritual director. Most people have no idea what a spiritual director or spiritual direction is. They think it's asking advice. Father, should I buy this car? Or, Father, do I need to clean the windows in the second story of my house? Or, Father, what do you think about this guy I want to marry? That's not spiritual direction. That's advice. For spiritual direction, first of all, it should be a priest. The reason why is because a priest is ordained to be the father of your soul. And so he gets special graces to be that guide that you need. And it shouldn't be any priest. It should be a priest that you choose. You should observe priests and think out of the box when you do so. Go to different parishes, look around, see what there is. Because every soul is different. And every soul needs a different kind of spiritual director. What works for one person won't work for the other. And once you've found someone who you think will be good to guide your soul to heaven, you ask him if he would be your spiritual director. That's what spiritual direction is about. It's not about what's going to happen today or tomorrow. It's about finding someone who can guide you to heaven. They can pull you along, keep you on track, make sure that you stay the path. That's what spiritual direction is. So you find the priest, you meet with him, and again, there are different kinds of spiritual directors. They will get you to do different things. But usually, they will have you observe what virtues you practice, what vices you practice, help you cut down on the vices and help you boost up some virtues, give you some spiritual reading to do, make sure your prayer life is in order, and in a general way, keep your whole soul good, your whole spiritual life good. That's what spiritual direction is all about. The third best way to keep your soul on track is actually not very efficacious by itself. But it's good if you have done one or two of the other previous things. And it's good anyway. And I've talked about it before. It's the examination of conscience. So if you go out and say, okay, I'm going to start examining my conscience, well, you're probably going to be like that person who says, well, my computer's slow, so I need to start cleaning it up. And so you click on this file and say, oh, that stuff's junk, I'm going to throw that out. And you click on the other file and you throw out that junk, and you go to your temp file and you empty that out, and you're picking around. But if you've made a retreat, or if you have a spiritual director and they put you on the right track, then you're going to be on the right track when you make your examination of conscience. But if you haven't done those things, you should still do it anyway. You should still have this examination of conscience. And what you should do in that case is you should find a book or something that has an examination of conscience written out so that you can read these questions and you can ask yourself, okay, have I done this sin? Or how is this virtue practice? And so on. And it should be once a day at least, if not twice a day. Maybe in the morning, a quick examine to say, what did I do wrong yesterday? How can I improve that today? And then in the evening, a real examination where you go through and say, okay, Bible says, just man falls 7 times a day. I'm only counting 3. What are the other things that I've done wrong? And you'll find out that it's a lot more than the number 7. Okay, that time where you hung up the phone on that person, or that time when you cut through someone else online, or so on. Even the smallest things. You'll start realizing, hey, you know, I'm not as good as what I think I am. So we should know ourselves. An interesting thing to do, maybe it might be the topic of another sermon, would be to know our parish, and to ask some questions to ourselves. Well, how are we doing as a parish? But for now, we should know ourselves. We should be able to know what we are doing wrong in our lives, know what we are doing right, and try to really clean out that soul and know ourselves well. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, amen.